Hi everybody, we are now going to solve true and false 32, chapter 2, additional topics concerning decisions. Let's first read the true and false. If a consumer always allocates the same sum to the purchase of two complementary goods, then the price elasticity of demand for both goods must be greater than -1. Okay, so basically we have, let's summarize a bit, complementary goods, and we are told that the total expenditure is constant. We have to say whether it is true, false, or uncertain, and the price elasticity of demand for both goods must be greater than -1. Okay, that's the part we are supposed to comment. Okay, so what we want to do to answer to this true and false is to analyze what happens when you have two complementary goods with an elasticity of demand larger than -1, so inelastic, and the price of one of them changes. Okay, let's write exactly this so that we get track of all the reasoning we need. So let's analyze what happens when we have two complementary goods with inelastic demand, inelastic because we are told it is greater than -1, and the price of one of them changes. Okay, we know that since we have complementary goods, when the price of one of them changes, the quantity demanded of both goods is affected. Okay, the quantity demanded of both goods is affected. So let's start with analyzing the first case, okay? The case in which, for example, the price of good X increases, okay? Price of X increases. In this case, we have that the quantity demanded of good X decreases, but you see the arrow is a bit smaller than this one, because we have said that the demand is inelastic. So it is true that the quantity demanded of X decreases when the price increases, but it decreases less than proportionally. This is why the arrow is smaller. The quantity demand of good Y decreases accordingly. Okay? Then the total expenditure on good X, what happens to it? Well, the price has increased. The quantity demand has decreased but less than proportionally, so the total expenditure on X increases. And the total expenditure on Y, since the price of Y is unchanged, the quantity demanded has decreased, then the total expenditure on good Y will decrease. Okay? And that's the first, let's say, case of the price of X increasing. But let's also analyze what happens when the price of good X decreases instead of increasing, okay? So that we have both the scenarios. Okay. So let's analyze what happens when the price of good X now decreases. Again, the quantity demanded of good X increases but less than proportionally. Okay, so again the arrow is smaller. Then the quantity demanded of good Y does the same, so it increases. Okay, here the total expenditure on X, well, the price has decreased, the quantity has increased but not so much, so it decreases. While total expenditure on Y, price of Y again unchanged, but quantity demanded of Y has increased, so it increases. Okay? And now that we have analyzed and understood these two scenarios, we can get to some conclusions that are the following. So, for the good, whose price has changed, in our case, good X, in our example, total expenditure changes in the same direction as the price change. Meaning that if the price of X increases, then total expenditure on X increases. If the price of X decreases, then total expenditure on X decreases. So you see, same direction, okay? What happens to the price, to the good whose price has not changed, okay? So for the good whose price has not changed, so for us, good Y, then the sign in the change in total expenditure is of opposite sign, okay? So TA changes in the opposite direction as the price change, meaning that if price of X increases, total expenditure on Y decreases. If price of X decreases, total expenditure on Y increases. Okay, so opposite change. So basically, total expenditure on the goods always change in opposite direction. When total expenditure on good X increases, total expenditure on good Y decreases. Okay, and we are going to write this thing as well. So total expenditure on the two goods changes in opposite directions. I repeat, why? You see, when you have the increase in the price of X, total expenditure of X increases and total expenditure of Y decreases. When you have a decrease in price of X, total expenditure on X decreases and total expenditure on Y increases. So it is in the opposite directions, okay? Hence, since they change in opposite direction, okay, these changes might offset each other. Okay, so it might be the case that these changes exactly offset each other, okay, basically leaving total expenditure unchanged. So it might be that the increase in total expenditure on X is exactly equal to the decrease in total expenditure on Y, so in the end the money you spend is the same. Okay? And this is because they basically change in opposite direction. And so we can conclude saying true. Okay, so we can end up saying that the statement is actually true.